Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Court of Nightfall by Karpov Kinrade, narrated by Emily Wu Zeller. Preface. Some say my story began when my parents were murdered. It did not. Others say it began when I died. They are wrong. I remember the pain. The bullet of fire entered my body and moved through me, leaving a trail of burning agony in its wake. I slumped over the crystal box that held the weapon we'd all fought to protect, my blood seeping out of me, staining the opaque quartz. Red. Scarlet. Evie whispered the color of my own name into my ear as I slowly died. My last vision was of that blood, still just gray to me, spreading into the cracks, into the intricate carvings that decorated the encasement. It almost seemed to glow, and I smiled and closed my eyes as the crystals shattered and darkness took me. My story begins long before that, and if the historians take issue, I care not, and neither should you. It's my story. I begin at the start, with the test, with the twins, and what happened to them. Chapter 1. Shades of Grey. Negative. Test me again. The nurse shakes her head. Sorry, Scarlet. I slide off the table, rubbing under my shoulder where she took my blood. The test is wrong. She frowns. Most kids would be grateful. I walk to the door. I'm not most kids. The nurse escorts me to the waiting room, informs my parents of the results, and leaves. My parents sigh and exchange a look. My mom drops down to one knee and hugs me. I know this isn't what you wanted, but... The test is wrong, I say. My dad stares at me for a moment. His voice is soft. Why would you think that, Star? I heal quick. I'm stronger than other girls my age. And I can just tell. It's my body. I can tell. He bows his head. My mom squeezes me tighter. You're healthy. That doesn't make you Zenith. They look tired, so I don't say any more. This day has been hard for everyone. My mom sighs. Why don't you go play outside while we fill out paperwork? I shrug and walk out the doors, passing posters of Zeniths stolen from their homes. A little girl with big eyes and a sad smile stares back at me from the e-screen in front of the office. She's out there somewhere. They all are. And it's no mystery who took them. It was Apex, he who runs the self-named group, the Apex, that traffics Zeniths for profit. But no one cares, so it will just keep happening. I understand why my parents are relieved. I just wish they understood why I'm not. Kids squint at me from the playground, checking if I was tagged. When they don't see anything new on my ear, they turn back to their play. One boy dives headfirst down the slide. It's red, with cracks in the thick plastic. I asked my dad the color once. I don't know what red looks like, but it's my favorite color. I turn away and run the dirt track around the school. Dust flies up around me. I build speed and jump, glancing at the gray sky, imagining I can fly. Not with an airplane, but with wings. I wish for them, but I don't tell anyone. You don't dream of flying, not if you want to live. There is war. You can hear it in the sobs of a mother weeping for her daughter. You can taste it in the rationed food and smell it on your tattered clothes. You can see it in the empty houses and roads and faces. You can feel it inside. I'm a child, so people assume I know little of such things. But when you are young and free and happy, pain stands out all the more. I'm too little to fight, so I spend my days playing and planning. I plan to end the suffering. Why don't the Nephilim give up? I ask, sitting on the swing, making patterns in the gravel with my foot. They'll never conquer the world. It's a stupid plan. It's not about that, says Jax. He sits on the swing next to mine, his shirt dark and his pants darker. I can't see the colors. I never have. But I imagine Jax is wearing blue. I hear it's a calm color, and I find Jax calming. The sky is dark and cloudy. The rusty carousel we used to play on creaks in the wind. 2 boys sit by a nearby anthill, poking at it with sticks as they laugh. So many of the children are gone. Jax leans closer and lowers his voice. One night, I heard my dad yelling at the E-screen. He said the Nephilim were fighting for their rights. He said all the news was a sham. I think he'd been drinking. I cringe. My parents let me try wine last New Year's. The taste still disgusts me. But I noticed something about my parents that night. They answered all of my questions. Sometimes drunk people are more honest. Maybe your father's right. Maybe we should give the Nephilim rights. He shakes his head, his hair falling in his eyes. It's not so simple. No, but it can be. I finish a circle in the gravel. One day, I'll leave the kingdom of sky, and I'll train to be a knight. Jax sighs. If we had the right families. I'll join a domus first and work my way up the ranks, gain patronage, gain a patrician family. Then I'll apply to be an initiate. It's been done before. Jax grins. Then I'll join you. We'll be Jax the Courageous and Scarlet the Clever. I giggle at my title. I only wish I understood my name better. Scarlet. I've tried to imagine the color, only to learn imagining a new color is impossible. People tell me it's fiery and fierce. I like that. Jack looks over to the sand pit where a girl builds a castle. I've seen her around the playground and the park. We've spoken twice, both times about how to build proper fortifications. Her name's Brooke. Poor girl, says Jax, his eyes distant. What do you mean? I ask. And then I see it. The tag in her ear. She tested Zenith. The 2 boys notice the tag too. The big one frowns and spits on the anthill. He nudges the small one, and they approach Brooke. She doesn't notice them. They kick her castle down. Hey! She yells, standing, her hands balled in fists. The big one shoves her back. Get lost, Zenith scum, he says. Get lost, biter, says the small one. They pick on her because she is different. I've been different all my life. When people speak of colors, I speak of shades. It makes me no worse. They think this girl is weak and alone. They are wrong. I jump off my swing. I walk up behind them. My parents tell me to approach things peacefully, but bullies aren't peaceful. They understand one thing. So I pick up a rock and throw it at the big one's head. The collision with his skull is nearly silent, but the boy is not. He yells and collapses, grabbing at his bloody hair. His eyes are foggy. The small one backs away. The big one climbs to his knees. Stupid Zenith lover! My big brother knows how to deal with you. He'll find you. Jax walks up beside me. He's 3 years older and almost as big as the bully. I palm another stone. We say nothing. The bullies exchange looks. Then the small one helps the big one up, and they walk away. My brother will hear about you biters, yells the big one. Fine. Let him tell others what I've done. This world likes violence and winning, and I'm good at both. "Are you okay?" I ask. The girl in front of us is tiny, my age but shorter, more petite. She brushes a strand of hair off her face and shrugs. "Yeah, thanks." "Brooke, what happened?" Another girl runs up to us. "Nothing. It's fine, Ella." Brooke turns to us. "I'm Brooke. This is my twin, Ella. Who are you?" They look a lot alike, both dark-haired with almond-shaped eyes and skin a few shades darker than my paleness. But where Brooke is unremarkable, someone who would blend into the crowd if not for how small she is, Ella would never blend in. She's got the face of a pixie, with big eyes and full lips and a dimple in her cheek. She's beautiful. "I'm Scarlet. This is Jax." We all awkwardly shake hands. They are both tagged. We aren't. If any of the teachers saw us, they would separate us. But I don't care. I don't go to this school. I'm only here for the testing. They can take their segregation and discrimination and eat it. "Do you want to play together?" I ask. Brooke raises an eyebrow. "Really?" Jax smiles. "Why not?" We sit in the sand with them and begin building a castle. Brooke and Ella exchange a glance, then sit with us. Our hands dip into the cool sand and we pack it into shapes as our creation comes to life. "Do you go to school here?" I ask, to break the silence. Brooke nods. "Yes." I smile. "We're homeschooled." Brooke looks up at us. "Are you brother and sister?" I blush, but I don't know why. "No, but we might as well be." "We've grown up together," Jack says with a grin. "I was there when Star was born." We fall into silence after that, building our castle bigger and bigger. The twins occasionally exchange glances, and I wonder if they have a secret language like me and Jax, a way to communicate so others don't know. I'm trying to add a tower to the castle when my sand collapses. "Again?" Jax chuckles, tracing out a detailed window with the stick. "That's what happens when you don't plan out the foundation." We once competed in a wood-carving competition. He built a palace with miniature knights. I built a house, though a lot of people mistook it for a rock. Brooke grins and looks at Ella. "Be careful," says Ella. Brooke nods, then looks back at me. "Let me help." She holds her hand over the castle, and the air buzzes. The sand comes together and floats. With care, she moves her hand until the sand is packed into a tower. "You're a graver," I say. "That's awesome." Brooke smiles, but it slips from her face a moment later. "No one else would think so." "They would, and they would be envious, and they would never admit it." "Are you envious?" she asks. I pause. I try not to be. Brooke bows her head, her eyes glistening. I reach over and pat her hand. "There's nothing wrong with you. The problem is with them." "How old are you?" Brooke asks me. "I'm 9. Brooke squints her eyes at me. "You don't sound like a normal 9-year-old. Jax laughs. "She's not. I keep trying to figure out how she got so smart. I can only assume it's the great company she keeps." He nudges me playfully and I laugh with him. But inside I too wonder why I'm so different. I don't think like others, or respond like others my age, or even older. It's why I don't really have any friends other than Jax. The twins look at us strangely. I don't know what more to say on the subject of my oddity, so I turn to Ella. "What can you do?" I ask, wanting to compliment her on her abilities as well. Ella blinks a few times. "Notice my eyes?" I squint. "What about them?" Jax sighs. "Star's colorblind. She can't tell the difference." "Oh," says Ella, playing with her hands sheepishly. I can change the color of my eyes. I'm a dud. I shake my head. You may be listed as a dud in the system, I say, pointing to the building we came out of. But that doesn't mean your abilities are useless. My mom is always trying to match her outfits to her eye color. You'll never have to worry about that. After a moment, Ella smiles. My parents emerge from the school, ready to go, but I ask if Jax and I can walk Brooke and Ella home instead. My mother glances at the tags on the girls' ears. Where are your parents? She asks. Home, says Brooke. They knew we'd test positive. My mom sighs, her lips in a tight line. My dad puts a hand on her shoulder. He looks at Jax and me. Walk them home, he says. We pass 2 people on the way. One sneers. The other takes one glance and imagines we don't exist. It takes 5 minutes to get to their house. On the porch, I ask if we can visit. Ella turns stiff, but only for a second. Maybe, says Brooke. I'll ask our mom. Thank you for... There's a thud, like someone walking into a table, and a man in a loose tank top opens the door. His gray beard is uneven, and he smells like alcohol. He points at me with a beer bottle. Who are you? Scarlet. This is Jax. You bothering my kids? No, we're friends. He smirks like he doesn't believe me. Brooke, Ella, come inside. You have chores to catch up on. Yes, Dad, says Brooke. The twins enter the house, and, with a swig of his beer, their dad slams the door shut in front of me. I sigh, hoping he treats his daughters with more manners than he treated me. We walk down the porch, and I notice a mark below one of their windows. They must not have seen it yet, for they would have removed it. I clench my fists, wondering who painted the black A. Someone knows Zeniths live here. Someone wants them gone. On the way home, we pass a gated community, a Zenith free sign on the door. Old posters of a knight in silver armor cover the light posts. The text underneath reads, Zenith? Then we want you. Fight for the orders. A figure cloaked in black with a mask of white is spray-painted on a wall. The words Nox Aeterna are written next to him in thick, spiky text. The graffiti is of Nyx, leader of the Nephilim, the one they consider a saint, maybe even a god. The boy who painted it was captured and executed 2 days ago. I saw it on the news. I stop and stare at the painting, surprised no one has removed it yet. Jax looks at me. I know what you're thinking, he says with a frown. What am I thinking? I ask with a challenge in my voice. Dangerous thoughts. It's not dangerous to dream, I tell him. When those dreams involve flying with Nephilim, it is. I've never told Jax about my secret dreams to fly with the Nephilim, but he knows me too well. He always has. I scowl at him. You don't know anything about it, Jackson Lux. He grins and nudges me. You can't hide yourself from me, Scarlet Knight. I see you. I ignore him and keep walking. He just chuckles and catches up with me in long strides. We pass the small church. The grass around it is dead. I attend, but only when it's mandatory. I respect the religion, the values, but the priest preaches more. He speaks of fallen angels and how they had children with man, how those children, Nephilim, are our enemy, and how if you are Zenith, then your ancestors bred with Nephilim, and your bloodline has sinned, and you are sinful, and you must repent every day of your life. I do not believe people should be held accountable for the mistakes of others. Even if the angels who fell were cruel and deadly, why does it make all their children so? Every year, the priest reminds us that we used to be 3 estates, plebeian, patrician, and clergy. It was only plebeians, like me, who chose to mate with angels. They created the sinful zeniths, and now we are 4 estates. It is why patricians rule, he says, because they remained pure. I focus back on the present as Jax and I turn the corner. A street bot, which looks like a large ball on wheels, hums and beeps irregularly. The robot strikes the curb over and over, stuck until its battery dies. Years ago, a maintenance crew would have fixed the issue in a few hours. Now, no one will come. I grab the street bot and turn it around, and it rolls down the road, on track once again. Jack stands beside me, staring ahead. It won't get any cleaning done. Its dusters are jammed. I know. It just seemed wrong to leave it that way. What way? Stuck in a life it wasn't meant for, I say softly. He nods, and we watch the robot disappear into the sunset. We arrive at a sprawling farmhouse with a chipped roof. Faded paint peels in the corners, and the front porch creaks. But it's home. It's where I was born, and it fills me with a kind of peace. A small tree grows in our front yard, shifting in the wind. I pat the dirt, freshly watered, and check the strength of its branches. They're strong. My dad and I planted the tree a few months ago. He let me pick, and I picked a weeping willow. They remind me of the maidens in old tales. It grows darker, and Jax and I walk inside. My mom and dad sit together on the couch, watching the e-screen. There is an image of a man in shackles. There is a crowd around him, throwing stones and food. They scream for blood. The e-screen turns black. My dad holds the remote. He smiles. How was the walk? Long, I say. What are you watching? Boring grown-up stuff. You know how we are. He chuckles and stands. Hey, how about you and I go flying? I know this is a distraction, but it's a good one. I nod. Jax faces my mom. Anything I can help with? He asks. There are some dishes left. Without hesitation, he marches into the kitchen. I hear the tap water start. Jax always helps around the house, and he stays here most nights. His father doesn't seem to mind. He and Jax don't get along. I follow my dad outside, to the small runway behind our house. He hands me a clipboard with the pre-flight checklist. Want to help me out? I take it from him and focus on checking the engines and gas. My palm flattens against the cool steel of the plane, and I close my eyes, imagining the flight, the feeling of weightlessness as the air currents propel me into the endless sky. I work in a daze, and when I'm done, a large hand lands on my shoulder. Strong, warm, comforting. I look up at my dad. Ready? I climb in next to him, my heart beating harder in my chest as my body prepares to surrender to the shift in gravity. My dad turns on the engine, and the seat rumbles beneath me. We drive down the strip and become airborne. My stomach drops and my heart stammers, but as we drift higher amongst the clouds, my breathing slows. Here, up in the sky, I am at ease. I grin out the window and try to imagine what a blue horizon would look like. Though the sun is setting now. There would be reds and oranges then, not blue. It's hard to remember how things change in colors. For me, it's only shifting shades of gray. I watch our house fade into the distance. When I grow up, I say, I'm going to be the best pilot the world has ever seen. My dad glances over at me, his smile briefly wilting. You have lots of time to figure that stuff out, Star. No need to rush. He doesn't understand, but he will someday. I know the course of my life. and nothing will change me. That night, while Jax watches movies in the basement, my parents sit me down, and my mom hands me a cup of hot chocolate. It's her way of asking forgiveness for what's about to happen. "What's wrong?" I ask. My parents share a look and a frown.
"Nothing," my dad says. "Everything is fine, but we wanted to talk to you about your future."
I relax into the kitchen chair and smile. We've had similar talks before. They said I shouldn't go into a Teutonic domus with my heart set on being a pilot. I said I'd consider their opinion. They exchange that parental glance that's endearing and annoying at the same time. They're wordless communications that I envy. My mom presses her lips together in a line. "So you want to be a pilot?" I nod and sip the hot drink. "That's the plan."
"Star, there are requirements for getting into that program, for even getting a pilot's license. Physical requirements."
I look between them, confused. I'm healthy, strong, and when I'm older...
"There's a vision test," my dad says.
My heart flutters in my chest. I can see just fine.
"Star."
My vision is 20/20. Better, even.
"Star."
It doesn't matter that I can't see color. My mom sighs and takes my hand. I know what she wants to say, and I don't want to hear it. She must know it too, because she smiles.
"Maybe they'll change the rules by the time you're older. But..."
She raises a finger before I can interrupt.
"But you should have another plan."
I swallow the rock in my throat. I don't show emotion in my voice. "I'll consider your opinion." They nod. I leave my half-finished hot chocolate on the table. Then I stand and run upstairs and slam my door. I fall into my bed and weep. My parents think they can control my path. They are wrong. I grab my laptop. The airplane sticker on the cover is half torn. I tear off what remains. Then I search for the video my parents wouldn't let me see. It's not available publicly online yet, but that's not a problem. My mom got me hooked on computers as a kid. When I could barely walk, I was already learning to type. A year ago, Jax declared me the world's best hacker. I find the video and play it. A man, handcuffed, is escorted down a street by another man dressed in long robes. People gather around, gawking. I hear someone twist the handle on my door, and I click the power button to shut down the video before they come in.
"What were you just watching?"
my mom asks. I shrug, playing it cool. "Just something I found online. It's..." She sits down next to me on my bed.
"Scarlett, are you lying right now?"
I debate whether to keep lying, but my mom would know. She always knows. "Yes," I say, shoulders slumping. She smiles gently.
"Then let's try again. What were you just watching?"
"The newsreel you wouldn't let me see. I hacked the news network." I glance up at her to gauge her level of mad, but she's suppressing a grin.
"Why?"
"Because you wouldn't let me watch it. Zeniths are being mistreated, and people need to do something. I need to do something."
"What do you intend to do?"
she asks, still curious more than anything. I think about it, glad I'm not in trouble. Yet. Well, I haven't settled on a plan. With some time, I could hack the Inquisition security system. She shifts on the bed to look at me better.
"If you do, they will find you."
"I could cover my tracks." She tilts her head, a long curl coming undone from her clip and falling over her shoulder.
"Some of them. But, Star, understand that other people have been at this for far longer than you. Whatever you can do right now, no matter how amazing, Inquisition security can do much better." I fold my arms across my chest, knowing I probably look like a pouty kid, but not caring.
"But I have to do something."
She smiles again, her eyes crinkling. "You can keep practicing."
"Practicing doesn't change anything," I say, dropping my chin to my chest as feelings of impotence and frustration build in me.
My mom is still for a moment, her eyes distant, reflective, before she focuses on me again. "Come with me," she says. "I want to show you something." She stands and leaves the room, walking downstairs. I hurry to follow.
"What?"
"The video I didn't let you watch," she says over her shoulder. The e-screen in our living room covers nearly the entire wall in a gray reflective material. With it, we can access networks or play videos sent via satellite signal from an e-glass. My parents both own one. I have one on my Christmas list. My mom clicks her e-glass and a video appears. A man is tied to a beam on a wooden platform surrounded by hay. People circle him, throwing food, stones, rotten vegetables, calling him names and sneering. Another man dressed in a cloak walks forward holding a torch, speaking to the crowd, but the people are too loud to hear the Inquisitor's words. "That man on trial was a hacker," my mom says. "He wiped multiple Inquisition bank accounts. They found him a day later." I feel a small surge of pride for what he did.
He must have really messed them up.
My mom sits on the couch, and I join her as she asks, "Do you think those accounts mattered?"
"I imagine they would. Money's important, right? But..."
I think about it more and realize
the Inquisition isn't hurting for money, are they? They can always get more.
My mom nods.
"Well," I say, "at least he showed people they could fight back."
"Did he?" my mom asks. "Or did he simply become another example of the Inquisition's power?" I look back up at the video just as the Inquisitor sets the torch to the haystack. As the hacker begins to burn, his cries mixing with the cheers of the crowd, my mom shuts off the video and sets the display to a serene mountain scene. She turns to me and reaches for my hand, squeezing. "My star, one day, when you're older, you'll make a difference. A real difference. But you need to be ready. Hone your skills. And," she ruffles my hair, "try to avoid stupid mistakes." She stands and walks toward the kitchen, and I slump in the couch, depressed. All of my practicing was for nothing. I don't want to end up like that guy in the video.
"I guess I'll stop hacking, then," I announce to the world in all my despondent preteen angst.
My mom turns back, a mischievous grin forming on her face. "I didn't say to stop," she says, winking. "I just said to be careful." Chapter 2. Mirrodin. I have always been a creature of knowledge. When the other children drew flowers in the sand, I drew plans for war. When they stared at clouds and gave them names, I studied the wind and predicted the weather. When they did as their parents asked, because their parents said they knew best, I asked my parents why and how, and they did their best to explain, though even they said there were things a child should not hear. I did not understand why they said it. To me, knowledge was power, and I wondered if that was why adults kept it from children, why patricians kept it from plebeians. Those with knowledge controlled those without, and I would not be controlled. If you were to ask me what I think now, I would tell you this. I still think knowledge is power, but I no longer think that power is always good. When I was a child, I snatched up information wherever I could. From Jax, I learned building and carving. From Ella, I learned how to knit and mend cloth. I learned to fly from my father, and from my mother I learned the workings of computers and code. But it is Myrddin who taught me how to wage war. In the end, I suppose, many will wish he had not taught me at all. It's a weekend, and I have no schooling, so I asked Jax if he'd like to go downtown. He would, he says, but he needs to help his dad fix the lawnmower. So I go alone. It's market day, and I'm sure to find something more interesting than watching grass grow in my backyard. Crisp, cool air mingles with the scent of ripe apples, and turned leaves dust a vibrant pattern over walkways and stone paths. It's the kind of day a girl like me could get lost in. Even in gray the world comes alive, awash with the smell and nip on my cheeks, filled with anticipation. I'm crunching an apple, licking the sweet juice off my fingers as I walk through the market. Farmers and crafters gather here to sell their wares. A juggler throws flaming sticks into the air while blindfolded. Children play four orders in nearby fields, or sometimes right through the crowd of annoyed adults. It's a mostly plebeian crowd. The Pats have their own events, though it's not completely uncommon to see a few here and there even still. They often pop over to handle business or pick up something they can't find in their private world. Typically items requiring a skilled zenith. Those are usually sold on the black market, my dad once explained. I found it instantly fascinating, of course, this dichotomy of humans who in one breath demonize and dehumanize an entire segment of the population who are not as they, while in the other breath coveting them and what they can do. Is it truly so difficult for people to live in honor of themselves and their own truths? I toss the core of my apple into a compost bin when I catch the eye of an old storyteller spinning a tale of war. He sits on the back of his carriage, pulled out into a small stage. At the front stands a glorious white buck with long white antlers. His carriage is draped in leather tied with rope and painted in shades of dark and light, like a night sky. "Come closer," the old man says, with large gestures of his arms. He's a white-haired man who has lived a long life, a hard life. He wears the proof on his skin, in deep grooves and fading scars. But his eyes, they are bright and sharp, and he knows how to wag his tongue. "Come and hear the tale of the great Juliana and the Templars. Come and hear the rise of the Four Orders. Listen now, for our tale begins before Juliana, before the Knights. It begins at the start of all things." This is a story we've all heard, a tale we all know, and the crowd responds to its part. "The Cataclysm!" The old man smiles, pleased with his star pupils. "Yes, the Cataclysm. It was then that the world was torn asunder. It was then that history was erased and mankind broken. A few of us remained, and we began to rebuild. But we were not alone." "The Nephilim!" the voices say as one. Yes, the Nephilim too survived. And they enslaved what remained of our people. They clad us in chains and forced us to build temples. They beat us and used our blood to feed. They made us less than men. But the crowd's voice is louder now, as fists are raised into the air. "They did not break us!" The storyteller stands, opening his arms to pull us all into his tale. 100 years passed. Then, in the deep shadow of night, at the base of the Silver Mountain, a child was born, and her name was Juliana. children in the crowd whisper in excited tones.
She grew up a slave, doing as the Nephilim told her to do. She married the man she loved, a blacksmith, and she lived a simple life. Then, one day, her husband displeased his Nephilim master, and so the monster killed his slave. It was then that Juliana picked up her husband's hammer, and, with it, struck down the one who killed her love. It was the first time in 100 years that a human killed a Nephilim. It was the first time we won.
"It would not be the last!" the crowd calls. The old man continues, leaning heavily on a thick wooden walking stick.
Juliana gathered supporters, and, together, they began a rebellion. They took one city after another, liberating all those within. Juliana resurrected the 4 orders: Templar, Teutonic, Hospitaller, and Inquisition. She freed the people and created a truce between man and Nephilim. But the truce didn't last.
One man cries out, "Because of Nyx!"
Yes. Long after Juliana passed away, a Nephilim called Nyx decided to overthrow the Twilight Queen and wage war on humanity. It is him we fight now, and we shall be victorious!
The crowd whistles and shouts, and people file by the storyteller, dropping coins and flowers in his basket. I stand to the side, in the shadows, watching. As the last of the crowd disappears around the bend, the old man pulls in the stage, grabs a bag from the back and hops out, locking up the carriage and turning to walk towards an alley. He glances around, as if to make sure no one is watching him. I want to know what he knows of the war, but I also want to know where he's going, so I follow him in the shadows, hiding behind houses, staying out of sight, as he takes a bit of food out of his pack and lays it out. No fewer than 20 cats appear, frantic for their share. He stands there a moment, petting them, letting them rub up against his legs, when 2 Inquisition officers flank him, holding their batons.
"What have we here?"
the tall one to his right says.
"Looks like a plea breaking the law,"
the short one replies. I can hear my heart in my head, thumping like a ball on the ground. The tall one takes his baton and rams it into the old man's gut. A cat throws itself at the officer's legs, only to be kicked away. I have to bite my knuckles to keep from screaming. I can't have the officers see me.
Regulation 442.3 specifically states that plebeian citizens are forbidden from distributing foods of any kind to animals or humans in a public manner, the short one says, holding his baton in the air. My eyes are glued to the old man, in dread anticipation of seeing his skull cracked open. The officer strikes, and the old man blocks with his walking stick. In a flash, he spins around, his long white robes swirling as he wields his stick like a knight on the e-screens. He strikes the officer in the shoulder, then arm, then gut, then foot. My eyes can barely keep up. One more hit to the head, and the officer falls unconscious. The old man turns and growls. "Get out! Keep your mouth shut, and I will forget this happened. Take this pile of biter rot with you." He kicks the tall man's body. The officer grabs his buddy with shaking hands and pulls him away. "You're one of them, aren't you?" He doesn't wait for a response as he leaves the alley.
The old man checks on the injured cat. She's whimpering and not walking on her leg, so he picks her up and bundles her in his jacket, then limps back to his cart. I wait until he climbs in and settles the cat into a comfortable bed, and then sets her leg. She meows, but he gives her an herb of some kind wrapped in cheese, and she settles down, half sleeping as he wraps her leg in a tiny brace. Once he has put away his supplies, I knock boldly, feigning more confidence than I feel. He turns his head and sees me standing outside the back of his carriage.
"What do you want?"
he asks gruffly. "First, I want you to invite me in. Then, I want to know how you learned to fight like that."
"I don't know what you're talking about, girl. Go away now."
I take a deep breath and climb into the back of his carriage. It's now or never, I tell myself over and over again. I pause for a moment, looking around. It's a tall carriage, large enough to stand, and it's lined with bookshelves that house hundreds and hundreds of books. I can't help myself as my hand reaches out to them. So many ideas, so much knowledge. Then, I remember why I'm there and turn to him. "Before you send me away, hear me out." He stares at me a long time before sighing.
"What are you doing here?"
"Teach me to fight like that. Please. It's important."
He guffaws. "Why? You want to be a knight like in legends? A hero for the ages? The next Juliana?"
"Yes," I say honestly.
"You're like all the rest. Stupid and ignorant as biter bait. Young girl wanting to be something she's not. Thinking knights are so amazing. So lovely."
"No, I don't think they are amazing or lovely or heroes," I say. "I think the system is wrong. It's corrupt. And if I were a knight, I'd change it. Fix it from within to be what it was meant to be, not what it's become." He tilts his head, staring at me for too many breaths to count, though I was hardly breathing at all.
"Get out of here. I'm tired."
My shoulders slump forward. It was worth a try. I crawl out of the back of his carriage and walk away.
"Girl!"
I turn back.
"Come back tomorrow at sunrise. Then we will train."
It's an hour before dawn when I wake from the sound of the rain. I dress quietly and pull on my raincoat and rain boots. I leave my parents a note that I went to town. Then I grab a biscuit to eat on my walk to the storyteller's carriage. I'm ready for sword training, combat maneuvers, hand-to-hand grappling. I get sitting. I've been in this position, legs crossed over each other, spine straight, for the last 3 hours. My stomach has long since used up that one biscuit, and it makes its protest known loudly in the silence. "This isn't working," I say, opening my eyes.
"Because you're not focusing,"
the storyteller says. When I arrived, he told me to sit. I asked him what we would be doing. He said learning to think. I asked his name. He said it didn't matter what his name was. I introduced myself, and he finally confessed his name to be Myrddin.
"Not that it matters a bit."
And then I sat, and now still I sit as he talks.
"The method of loci will give you the greatest gift anyone could have. The ability to remember, to think critically, to plan and strategize with all the information you need accessible in your mind. Now, let's try it again. Close your eyes and imagine your house. In each room, place one of the Latin phrases I wrote down, visualizing it not just as a word, but as a real thing." I work another hour at this visualization. I'm not allowed a break until I can recite from memory the 10 phrases he gave me. "About time," he says when I finish. I cross my arms over my chest.
That was hard. Not many people can remember 10 obscure Latin phrases in one day.
Before I'm through with you, you'll be able to recite 100 without stress.
I laugh. That's impossible. But now I want it. I want a mind that could do that. He tears off bread from his loaf and hands it to me, then sets out cheese, fruit, and meat for us. As I eat, he asks me how exactly I plan to become a knight. I'm going to be a pilot, get the attention of a wealthy Pat family, get adopted. He wipes his mouth with his sleeve.
That's a pretty ambitious plan. For a colorblind girl, especially.
I look up in surprise. How did you know I was colorblind?
When I mentioned the red curtains, your eyes didn't flick to them. There are 3 sets of curtains in here, each different colors, and you didn't know which ones were red. And when I asked you to bring me the blue book, but pointed to the green, you brought the green.
I shrug, impressed despite myself, but determined not to show it. Doesn't matter. They have surgeries to fix it. I can save up. Go to one of those places. The black market. They have everything there.
Careful, girl. Those aren't people you want to mess with, unless you fancy having your eyes plucked out and sold to collectors.
I shiver. That happens?
That and more.
I've lost my appetite, and I place the slab of meat I was about to bite into back on my plate. Well, there will be other options. I'll find a way. He tilts his head.
I actually think you might, girl. You just might surprise us all. So best not waste your potential. Back to your spot. I've got 15 new Latin phrases just for you.
The sun is high in the sky, a big burning ball of fire that stands between us and an ice age that would destroy life on our planet. It's a delicate balance, this business of staying alive. So many tiny adjustments, unseen and unknown, keep us on the brink of extinction without tossing us over. We almost fell over that edge during the time of the cataclysm in the age of Juliana. Now we know we can survive anything. Well, almost anything. Boring almost summer days are sometimes hard to endure. I pump my legs, kicking the porch swing forward as Jax walks up to my house.
So, what have you been up to?
He asks. I sigh and stare at my shoes. They used to be white, but too much running around playing has left them a dirty gray. Nothing.
Sorry, I should have said, where have you been sneaking to in the mornings?
You noticed, huh? He chuckles.
Come on, tell me.
I smile, a very not boring idea entering my mind. Let's get Brooke and Ella. We shout to my mom that we're going to the neighbors and then run off, kicking up dust as we do. It becomes a race, but Jax is too fast and always wins. I try to be a gracious loser as we approach their property. There's a broken-down car collecting dust, and spiderwebs by the side of the small house. The paint that used to be bright is now so faded and cracked it looks like vomit. Jax knocks 3 times with sharp knuckles, and we wait. Brooke comes to the door first, her small face peeking out. When she sees us, she smiles. Jax! Scarlet! What are you doing here? You want to do something fun? I ask. I suddenly feel a bit shy and I look back down at my sneakers. Brooke hollers for Ella, and their mother comes to the door, opening it wider. The smell of liquor and cigarettes assaults me and I try not to cough. Their mother doesn't look anything like my mother, who is young and pretty with big eyes and a wide smile. Their mother looks much older, though she probably isn't. Her skin looks stretched too tightly over her cheekbones, like a skeleton that tried on someone else's skin and found it didn't fit right. Her eyes are big,
but in a haunted, empty way. Her face looks lost, forgotten, a fading memory of a life once lived.
"You came to invite my girls to play?" she asks, a hint of incredulity in her voice.
Jax nods.
"Yes, Mrs.
Conray," finishes Brooke. Mrs. Conray smiles, her stained, broken teeth showing through her parted lips.
"Of course. But are you sure? They're—"
She pauses.
"Zeniths. We know. We still want them to come play,"
I say. There's no point in feigning ignorance. We all know it's uncommon and frowned upon for purebloods to associate with Zeniths. I don't care.
"And your parents don't mind?"
she asks, still blocking the door from Ella and Brooke, who are behind her, bouncing up and down in their excitement to leave.
"No, they don't,"
I say, wanting this conversation over. Their mom steps aside, half a cigarette dangling from her right hand, the ash hanging precariously from the end. I watch it, fascinated, to see if it falls to their carpet, but it hangs on with admirable tenacity. I find myself rooting for that bit of ash, that it can hang on against the odds. Ella and Brooke walk with us back to my house. Ella is quiet, trailing a step or two behind. Brooke keeps up a steady stream of words, talking about how they will be changing schools this fall since they tested positive.
"They send a special bus that carts all us plebe Zens to a whole different city for school,"
she says, her nose crinkling in disgust.
"They could at least have Zen schools in every city if they're going to segregate us like we're biters."
"I've never even been to a plebeian school," I say. "Do you think the Zenith schools will be terribly different?" Ella is silent, letting Brooke speak for them both.
"Course it will be. The only thing worse than a plebe is a Zen. Seems so unfair that Pats get everything. Pure blood, money, power. Well, we get what? A slight chance at hopefully getting into a domus and becoming a slave to the orders? And only if you don't test as Zen. Once you're Zen, it's over.
We will never amount to anything now." I suck in my breath, struck by her bleak words. But she's right. Unless you're born royal into the patrician class, you can't become a knight. But plebeians can apply to join a domus and rise in the ranks slowly that way, unless they test positive as a zenith. There are no options for zeniths but menial labor and poverty. As we near my secret destination, the conversation shifts to the Fortuna Festival in a few months. It's the highlight of summer. Ella finally speaks.
"I've heard it's amazing."
I smile.
"It is. The Queen and other royals will be there, and everyone is dressed so fancy. There's lots of yummy treats, and they even share with the lower classes. You should go this year."
Brooke frowns.
"Our parents never go."
"Come with us," I say, hoping my parents won't mind. "It'll be fun." They smile, and we arrive at the wagon. I knock on the door. Mirden pokes his head out, his bushy gray hair a mess.
"What? Who is— Oh, it's you. We already had a lesson today, girl."
I gesture at my company. "These are my friends. They'd like to train too." Mirden rolls his eyes.
"So you're all going to be knights? Is that the plan?"
Jax nods, his eyes filling with excitement. The old man sighs.
"Oh, by the orders. You, boy, help fetch a ball and 2 nets."
"I have some at my house."
Jax runs off. Ella pulls on my sleeve.
"Who is he?"
"A friend," I whisper. "You can trust him." She nods, and after a few minutes, Jax returns with the supplies. He hands me a net, and we set them up on opposite sides of the yard, facing each other. They're big enough to catch a ball the size of a half loaf of bread, but small enough to be guarded by one player if needed. "So, what are we doing?" I ask. Mirrodin pulls out the feed for his buck and walks around to the front of the wagon, his robes dragging on the grass.
You ever play orders?
Of course. Every kid has played orders.
That's what you're doing.
I groan. That's not training. Mirrodin pauses, then pulls something from his robes. He holds up a shiny pin carved to look like a leaf.
Got this from a stuck-up knight, I did. Winner gets the bloody pin.
Jax grabs the ball.
I call Teutonic!
I'm Inquisition, Brooke says, yanking the ball from him. I look to Ella. What would you like to be? I ask. She smiles shyly. Hospitaller. I nod. Ella and I will be a team, and Jax, you and Brooke can be one. I want to be Teutonic as well.
Mirrodin chuckles.
Sorry, girl. You have to be Templar. You need one of each order.
While that's technically true, I've seen it played without a Templar. But I sigh and go along. Ella and I meet near our net. Okay, we need a plan. Jax is really good at this game, I say. Ella shrugs. So is Brooke. Jax will be able to freeze us with a touch, and Brooke can throw us in jail. That makes them dangerous. We don't have active talents, but you're at least immune to freezing and can unfreeze me if I get tagged. And if one of us gets thrown in jail, I can break us out. We have to play offensively and protect our net until we have a good shot at getting the ball in theirs. Sound good?
Ella nods meekly, and I worry our chances are not strong. And I don't like losing. Despite our best efforts, we are not able to keep up with Jax and Brooke. They are fast and coordinated, moving through us, freezing and jailing us faster than we can unfreeze and free each other. They score 3 points before we even score 1. The game will be over when the first team reaches 10. I attempt to score, but the ball rolls past their net and stops at Mirrodin's feet. He picks it up and smiles at me, waving me over. I jog to stand by him, my face reflecting my grumpy disposition.
Why the long face, girl?
This game sucks blood, I say, hoping to shock him with my vulgarity. He just laughs.
Why's that?
The Templars never do anything. I can help, but I don't get to fight like Teutonics or even like Inquisitors. Templars are weak. He kneels down to face me eye to eye.
That's a strange idea of what strength is. A Templar isn't going to be the brute force like Inquisitors or Teutonics. Their strength comes from their mind. They are experts in strategy and subterfuge, and use their skills to hide and sneak and deceive until they can strike. The key is to stay out of sight until you're needed most. Stay behind enemy lines and think things through. Don't play like Jax and Brooke. Play like Scarlet.
I think about his words and nod. I'm almost 10 and I know how to be sneaky. I smile, ready to try playing the way he suggests. I run away with the ball. Jax chases me, but I lose him between 2 trees and rush into a maze of bushes. I hear Brooke calling for him, but he ignores her and tracks me. I don't let him find me. Brooke looks for him, leaving their net free. I could take the shot, but it's risky. Ella is there, standing quietly, waiting. If I throw it to her and she misses, we will lose another point. But she's my teammate. I throw it to her. Her eyes widen in surprise. Then she smiles and sinks the ball into the net. Score! We manage 4 more points until Brooks and Jax win. Brooke has the most points, so Mirrodin presents her with the pin. I'm not sure I've ever seen her happier. Our order games become a regular event over the next few months, and my training with Mirrodin continues. I play each order many times, but I come to prefer the Templars after all my fussing. Mirrodin was right. Templars are powerful when you play the game right. We're in another cutthroat game, tied 9 to 9, when horns blare throughout the city. It's so loud I would swear my parents could hear it all the way at our house. Above us, in a clear sky, a hologram of the Queen of Sky appears. She is dazzling in an Eden Fashionable's outfit of white and bright shades. Tiny white birds are perched on her shoulders, their miniature cloth wings flapping as if they were real. Baby flowers blossom and close in her light hair, and a crown of jewels sits on her head. She smiles, her tan face youthful, light eyes sparkling like the jewels in her crown. "Citizens of the Kingdom of Sky, today is a great day of celebration. Nyx, war leader of the Nephilim, has been captured. The reign of terror that has plagued humanity since the fallen ones mated with pure men is now over. Soon, the rest of the Nephilim will be hunted down, and they will be gone from our lands forever." Myrddin places a hand on my shoulder, a frown marring his face as he watches the sky. "In celebration, all food and fuel rations will be doubled for a month, and each family will receive a special treat to commemorate the day humanity was freed from tyranny. Long live His Holiness and the Four Orders." "Long live His Holiness and the Four Orders," we all say out of habit, ending with, "Long live the Queen." Her image fades from the sky. Myrddin sighs, his eyes dark.
"Go home. There will be no more training today."
"But—"
"Go home,"
he murmurs under his breath as he disappears into his carriage, slamming the door shut behind him. The four of us run back to my house. My dad and Mom already have the e-screen on when we come barreling through the door, out of breath and covered in dust from the roads. A vision of Italy covers our living room wall. A reporter speaks in front of the Vatican. "Pope Icarus has retreated in private to pray for our world, but today is a day to celebrate His Holiness. Newly elected to his title, and the youngest our history has known, Pope Icarus has proven himself a man of his word. He chose his name after the legend of a man who reached too high and paid the price. Pope Icarus vowed to never reach too high, that he would stay humble even as he was elevated to the highest position in world government. Today, in light of the greatest victory in history, he has proven just such a pope, retreating into his private quarters to humbly celebrate the fate of humanity, as others bask in the public accolades due to him." We watch with bated breath as the camera pans to a stadium set up with a cutting block. Ella gasps, and I cover my mouth. "They're cutting his head off?" Jax holds my hand, and I squeeze his, gripping it tightly as we watch Nyx brought out by 2 armed inquisitors. He is dressed in black, his mask still on. His wings are hidden, but he has the build of a man who knows war. "Why is his face covered?" I ask. My dad raises an eyebrow, but it's my mom who answers. "No one knows what he looks like, but everyone knows his mask. This is how people see him." There's something in her voice that makes me wonder, but I don't have time to think on it. Because a moment later, an axe strikes through Nyx's neck, and his head rolls off the stage, landing with a splat on the floor, a trail of blood dripping from his now headless, lifeless body. Nyx, the Lord of Night, the Prince of Darkness, is no more. The crowd cheers, chanting the name of the new pope, as the reporter tries to speak through the chaos. Something about Nephilim groups already surrendering and disbanding, but how the war isn't over yet, how it will be years before we are truly safe. But no one is listening. To the world, the death of Nyx is the beginning of a new era. He was the hope of all Nephilim, their Juliana, and without him, they are lost. Their battle over.
We have lived in a war-racked age for so long. I don't know how to feel. I slump on the couch, my mind spinning. We have fought the Nephilim for over 700 years. And now, we have won. Chapter 3. Plebe. For several months now, Ella and Brooke have spent a lot of time with me and Jax, training under Mirden, pretending to be knights. But today, it's only me and Ella. Brooke is sick and Jax is gone with his dad. We don't have enough people to play orders, so I teach her how to play chess instead. She sits across from me, quiet, still, studying the board as I explain how the game is played. She moves first, and I counter, talking her through her plays just like my dad did for me when I first learned. When she takes one of my pawns, I cheer for her. "You're a quick study," I say. She smiles. "Thanks." She looks around our small house and stares with wide eyes at the wall full of books across from us. "You have so many," she says as I make my move. My parents love books. They are a rarity, especially amongst our class, but somehow they manage to get their hands on them. "Have you read any?" she asks. "Yes, most of them." "I can't read well," she confesses. "My parents can't read, and my school doesn't do a good job teaching stuff like that." This surprises me. I can't imagine not knowing how to read. "Do you want me to teach you?" I ask. She smiles and nods. "Yes, please." We leave our game of chess and I pull out a book for little kids, figuring it would be easier to start there. We go through the alphabet and I cover a few basic Latin rules before we begin. "You're so smart," she says. "You should have been a patrician. You seem like one. You even look like one." I don't know what to say to that. It's true patricians often have more finely chiseled features, but I've been a plebe my whole life, just like them. My mom says I look like my grandfather, but he died before I was born. Both her parents did. He was a historian. I think I would have liked him. My dad's parents liked to fly. He said I get my love of flying in planes from them. But they're dead too. "The war?" "Yeah. Seems everyone's got someone who died in it." She nods. As I go through books, looking for something she would like, I stumble upon a book full of old symbols. One catches my eye. It's the infinity symbol with a cross coming off it with 2 lines through it. The text calls it the Leviathan Cross. I stick the book on the end of the shelf and finish my afternoon with Ella, picking a selection of stories for her to look through on her own. That night, after Ella leaves, I bring the book I found to my mom. "What's this?" I point to the old symbol that caught my eye. She studies it. "That's a very old Templar symbol. It symbolizes the balance of masculine and feminine. It's been used by other organizations throughout ancient history, but it always came back to the Templars." My mom's e-glass blinks and she leaves the room, speaking quietly and quickly. Normally a family in our class is issued 1 government e-glass to share, but my parents, though not merchant class, have somehow acquired 2. 1 for each of them. I admit to some jealousy about this. I would give a limb for an e-glass of my own. I'm getting ready for bed, my teeth brushed and long pale hair pulled into a braid, when my parents both come into my room. They have their serious faces on. My mom sits on the edge of my bed and pats the spot next to her. I sit and wait, my belly turning to nervous bees. "Your dad and I have to take a trip, and we'll be gone a few days." I'm so surprised I don't know what to say. They've never left me before. Ever. "Where are you going?" They exchange a look, the one that says they are keeping things from me because they still think I'm a kid. "We have some business to handle," my dad says. "But you'll be staying with Jax and Mr. Lux while we're gone. so we expect you to be well-behaved and helpful. I wrinkle my nose.
Can't I stay here? I'm old enough.
My mom laughs. You are growing up fast, but you're not old enough to stay here alone overnight. Sorry, kid.
When are you leaving? I ask.
They look at each other again, an uneasy edge to their smiles. Right now. A few days have turned into over a week, with no word about when they will return. I try not to worry as Jax and I play house, cooking, cleaning, and managing the day-to-day life of staying alive as his father does his best to stay soaked in a haze of alcohol. Mr. Lux stares at the e-screen, watching with unblinking, unseeing eyes, the stories playing out in front of him, beer clutched firmly in hand. He seems to have a never-ending supply of the bitter brew. It's dark out as Jax and I lay on our backs staring up at the stars.
What kind of business would an accountant and school teacher need to do that takes them away for this long? I ask.
I don't know, Star, he says, but I'm sure they'll be home soon. Want to borrow my dad's e-glass to call them?
No,
I sigh. A shooting star streaks across the sky, and I grab Jax's hand and squeeze.
Make a wish,
I whisper. I wish for truth, to know the truth of things. A part of me wishes I had not.
Let's go to my house, I say,
sitting up, my heart beating faster. Why? Jax asks.
My parents are gone, and the bunker...
I let him guess the rest. He grins, mischief dancing in his eyes.
Seriously, what do you think is in it?
I tap my foot on the steel door forged into the dirt and rock. Jax leans against one of the many ponderosa pines on our property. The trees tower over us like sentinels guarding a secret. Pine needles scatter over the bunker's entrance as a breeze blows the gentle scent of vanilla off the sun-warmed bark cooling in the chill of evening. He shrugs, his shoulders still those of a boy, though he's a teenager now. I'm still just a kid in his eyes, but I feel older. Like him. Don't know, he says. Maybe your family is really rich and this is where they keep all their money? A laugh croaks out of me like a frog.
Right, that's why we're living off rations and my mom waters down our vegetable soup to make it last longer.
His mouth turns up in a wry grin. They're frugal? I read about wealthy people way back before the cataclysm who had millions but lived like us. I can feel my face scrunch up.
Why? And where did you read this?
That's just how they lived. I read about them in old newspaper scans, back when the news was printed on paper.
Can you imagine people wasting all those trees just to print news and transient information on paper? It's so weird. Books are one thing. They last. But the other stuff? That's just wasteful.
I often think about what life must have been like for people before the Nephilim and Zeniths, before the angel technology, before the Great War, before the cataclysm, before the orders, before. They led such odd lives. If not treasures, then what? He asks, going back to the contents of the bunker. The bunker is the great mystery of my life. It predates my own existence and is the one place on all the acres of our property I've never been allowed to go. And no one will tell me why.
I think it's something magical, some epic secret that will save the world.
He rolls his eyes and I want to punch him in the arm. Why would your parents have something like that? He asks. I glare at him.
I don't know, but why would they have a secret bunker we're never allowed in anyways?
Maybe your dad is telling the truth and it's just survival gear they don't want you messing with. I cross my arms over my chest and flinch. My breasts have started to swell and they always hurt. I don't know how I feel about this. I want to be older, but I don't want to have breasts.
Maybe. Let's break in and see what's in there.
How? He asks. I look around and grab a branch from the forest floor.
Maybe we can pry it open?
He nods and finds a rock. Maybe we can use this too. We set to working on the door, using our body weight as leverage to pop it open. It doesn't work. We drop to the ground, panting from our failed exertions. Where's the key? Jax asks.
My dad keeps it on him at all times,
I say. I've tried to sneak it from him, but he's like a Templar with that key. So secretive, so sneaky. Jax leans back on his hands and looks up into the sky, a moonbeam falling on his face. My heart leaps a bit as I look at him, and I blush and glance away, irritated at myself for acting so flustered. I guess we'll never know, he says, oblivious to my strange feelings, which is definitely a good thing. I sigh.
I'll never give up. Someday I'll find out what my parents are hiding.
For the first time, Myrddin and I train at night. We forage in the forest as moonlight glints off grass, and the hum of crickets fills the air. "Moonflowers only blossom under a full moon's rays," says Myrddin. "We must only pluck them then to seduce their powers. Do you remember the 3 things moonflowers aid in?" I tick them off one by one as I search for the tiny glowing white petals in the thick underbrush.
They aid in a woman's monthly cycle. You can use them as a tonic to induce sleepiness. And I know this, but I can't quite...
"Find it in your mind," he says.
Oh yes, in the basement! They soothe a colicky babe.
"Very good, Scarlet," he says. I beam. He only ever calls me by my name when he is particularly pleased with me. We've been training for months, and my ability to map ideas in my mind is growing.
Myrddin, how do you know all of this? Who trained you?
I ask this each time we train, and each time we train, his answer is always the same. "A little fairy taught me." I'd like to meet this little fairy someday. He blinks, looking up at the full moon, and sighs. He seems sad tonight. Quieter. Nicer. I'm worried.
What's wrong? You're not yourself.
He sits on a rock and looks up again. It is a sad night. On this day, 20 years ago, I lost my daughter to war. I never imagined the old man with a family. I put a hand on his knee.
I'm sorry. I didn't know.
He looks down at me. You remind me of her sometimes. Both of you stubborn as a biter. I should have trained her better. If I had... His voice trails off, but I know what he's thinking.
That won't be me, I say.
Sitting there, gnarled hands clutching his walking stick. He looks his age, or more. You would never imagine he could move as fast as he does. Think the way he does. He pats me on the head. Let's hope not, girl. Now, back to work. What can you tell me about the poison red fairy? I easily find the room with the answer.
It will cause someone to burn with fever and become weak-muscled until it kills them. The antidote is dark leaf.
He keeps asking the questions, and I keep answering as we hunt for the elusive moonflower. My parents don't tell me when they finally return home. I would be more upset, but instead I'm locked in place behind a tall pine tree as I watch them stand over the open bunker door. I almost imagine it glowing from within as they stare down into the depths of its underground belly. It's dark out, and I'm technically supposed to be helping Jax make dinner, but I told him I needed some time alone. I didn't tell him it was because I missed my own house and needed to see it. I wasn't expecting my parents to be here. They talk in soft voices that carry quietly in the night. I don't hear words, only the cadence of their speech. My mom gestures to the ground, to the bunker, her face set tightly and her shoulders held too close to her ears. My father is calm, always the rock to my mother's dynamic wind, but even he is holding his body too rigidly. This is not how an accountant and schoolteacher are meant to behave, shrouded in secrets and mystery trips and phone calls. What are you hiding from me? I weigh my options. I could sneak back to Jax's house and pretend I never saw anything. In other words, I could do what I've always done. Or I could step out of the shadows and ask them outright what's going on. My heart thumps in my chest and my palms slicken with sweat as I consider both options. I realize in that moment there's a part of me that's scared to know the truth. I step around the tree and walk toward them. I am ready. My dad sees me first and his face shuts down. All the fear and stress I saw there turns into a mask of pleasantry even as he closes the bunker door. It clicks into place, locking with at least 3 different mechanisms I can hear.
"Scarlet, honey, what are you doing out so late?"
He asks with that too pleasant sing-song voice usually reserved for door-to-door salesmen. "What are you doing home?" I ask. I try not to sound upset, but it slips through. I've been waiting 2 weeks for them to come back, and they don't even tell me when they do? My mom turns to me and smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes, which are still filled with some unnamed worry. "We were about to go get you. We picked up some new supplies while we were gone, and we wanted to load them into the bunker before we picked you up. Did you have a good time with Jax?" she asks, walking away from the bunker. She's trying to distract me. It's not working. "What supplies did you get? Can I see?" They share a look, and I square my shoulders and make eye contact with them. My dad taught me people don't like to make eye contact when they lie. But they both look me straight in the eyes. And they lie. And if I didn't know them so well, I wouldn't even know I was being lied to. They are good.
"Not tonight, honey," my dad says. "We're already locked up, and you know we don't like you playing in there."
"Why do we need new supplies? The war is over. We're safe now, aren't we?" My mom puts an arm around my shoulders and guides me to our front door. "It is over, but there's a lot more to do before any of us are truly safe." She looks over my head at my dad, frowning. And it hits me. They don't agree about something. Something involving me. They always agree on everything. They have been a united front since I can remember. But this, whatever this is something they are arguing about. Unfortunately, I don't get any answers that night. They drive me to pick up my stuff from Jax's house, and we settle into an evening of dinner, reading, and a game of chess with my dad. I'm getting better at playing him, and tonight I even beat him. I'm sure it's because he's distracted, but it reminds me of something important, something I hold on to. I won't always be a kid. Someday I will be an adult, and they won't be able to lie to me then. I'll have a right to know the truth. And if they don't tell me, I'll find the answers myself. Ella and Brooke spend more and more time at my house in the coming weeks, but given what their parents are like, I don't blame them. I'd escape as often as I could too, if that were my life. It means they are with us for a lot of family activities, including our quarterly visit to volunteer at the Domus Infirmos, the sick house in the outskirts of the city that only the poorest and most disenfranchised go to for help. I have a love-hate relationship with this place. I love that I can make a small difference in the lives of people who are so broken and miserable. I hate that being here feels like a level of purgatory I might never escape from. The weather apparently agrees with me and bestows upon us all the rain and wind it can muster on short notice, being so close to summer and usually quite temperate. We arrive at a circle of large circus tents littered with the refuse of humanity no one else wants. Ella and Brooke follow me out of our car and stand behind me, eyes wide as they look around. We are soaked to the bone by the time we trail after my parents into the largest tent in the center. The location of the Domus Infirmus changes regularly to help avoid raids by the local Inquisition Domus. I don't know how my parents discover the location each quarter, but they always seem to know where to go. We are each given an apron to wrap around us, and are then escorted into the main tent by an old man stooped over his cane, his gnarled hands gripping it so hard his knuckles turn white. He gives a small nod to my parents and leaves us to serve donated food to those well enough to feed themselves. I take my position behind a pot of boiled potatoes and begin serving each sad soul who files past me, their eyes dead, their bodies caving in on them in their own despair. At least 90% of them have tags in their ears. Ella notices this and touches her own tagged ear. They are zeniths, the outcasts of our world. Many are veterans of the war, having lost a limb or more. I offer a smile to each person, making eye contact and sending what comfort I can to them along with their boiled potato. Maybe I'm a fool for believing it makes a difference, but I hope it does. There is a smell of death that lingers in the air here. It's thick and strong and mixes with the scent of excrement and infection. No amount of cleaner can erase it. I breathe through my mouth and keep smiling. The tent is lined with long tables filled with people eating. The other tents are lined with beds filled with people dying. We are about to leave after working a 4-hour shift when the Inquisition officers arrive. There are 3 of them, and they carry themselves with such arrogance, as if they are knights and not plebes who lucked into a position at one of the Domus orders. Give a fool a sliver of power and he will make himself a king. But he is still just a fool. They raise their batons and shout that everyone needs to clear this area under penalty of arrest. I swallow bile and look up at my parents. They can't let this happen. Most of these people have nowhere else to go. They are zeniths and won't be treated at hospitals. I tug at my mom's sleeve and she looks down at me, her face furrowed in anger. Get my mother angry and she'll start her own inquisition. I smile, cheering her silently as she marches over to the officers. Her face is animated and outraged, and she gestures wildly as she speaks to them. I can't hear her words, but the officers don't look happy. My dad sighs and joins her side, speaking more calmly. They look about ready to bust the place up when my dad looks back at me. Something in his eyes changes, and he turns back to the officers and leans in, whispering something to them. They look around as if they are in trouble, and then turn around and leave. Everyone in the tent cheers for my parents, touching them and shaking their hands as they walk back towards us. I reach for my dad's hand. What did you say to make them leave? I reminded them of their job, he says. Maybe that's true, but that's not the whole of it. Whatever he said to them made them scared. But what could a plebe have said to an officer to scare them away? Chapter 4. Leave-taking. I've never had a birthday party with friends other than Jack's. But I'm turning 10, and this is a big deal. At least it feels like it is. I don't like that Jax is already a teenager, and I'm not even in the double digits yet. He doesn't treat me like a baby, but I feel the distance between us growing as he develops interests outside of our friendship and family. So I work really hard on my handmade invitations, one each for Ella and Brooke. Ella's has flowers on it, because I noticed she loves the flowers we have in our backyard. I read the colors on the crayons carefully, making sure to draw the flowers in colors that are fitting. It's strange to create something that I can't see, that only others will be able to enjoy in its fullness. For Brooke, I drew stars because she loves looking at the sky like I do. Fortunately, stars are easy to color. I can't help but run most of the way to their house, my sneakers pounding the packed dirt roads. I feel fast, strong, free. I spin in the sun-dappled shade of the trees, loving the feel of the beautiful weather. I've read that there are amazing black and white photographs of nature that people like to print and hang in their houses. How funny that someone would deliberately strip the world of color. Does it add something to the way a thing is seen? Someday I will find a way to get a genetic modification so I can see in color, even if I have to save every penny I ever make and use the black market to get the surgery. And then I will know if these trees look better in black and white or in color. I imagine that when I can finally see in color, I will never want to see black or white or gray again. I will fill my life with reds and blues and greens and yellows, whatever they look like. I've heard good things about purple and am excited to make its acquaintance. It's the color of nobility, of the patrician. I don't know why, but I will wear purple and smile. When I arrive at the twins' house, I stop short, my sneakers digging into the dirt. I drop the invites I worked so hard on as I hear the screaming coming from upstairs. Their father's voice carries far and wide.
"What did you say to me? What did you say to me, biter?"
One of the girls cries out, and I hear a smack and a small body fall to the floor. I don't think. I just run inside, throwing the door open as I look around. Their mother is sitting on the couch in the living room, staring at a blank e-screen with the crack down the middle. "Mrs. Conray?" She doesn't respond. Her eyes are glassy with heavy lids covering half her pupils. Her body is limp. She is drugged or drunk. I can't tell. I hear more screaming upstairs and I run up, taking the stairs 2 at a time. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to do something. The girls share a bedroom upstairs and they are in there now, their father looming over them with a leather belt in his hand.
"I'll call the apex on you biters,"
he says, spittle flying from his mouth and hitting Brooke in the face.
"I didn't mean to, Daddy. I'm sorry."
Brooke is crying and there's a long red welt down her right cheek.
"You know how much that e-screen cost, you little biter?"
He raises his hand and smacks her with the belt, hitting the side of her head. She falls to the floor, blood trickling from a cut on her head. Ella screams and scurries to her from across the room. I look around for something to fight him with, and my eyes land on a lamp by the side of their bed. I pick it up. It's heavy and will work enough. His back is to me. He raises his belt again, but before he can land another blow on my friend, I scream and hit him as hard as I can in the head with the lamp. "Run!" I tell the girls. They do, hiding in the hallway bathroom. Their father is on the ground, moaning, his head bleeding. My hand is shaking as I walk up to him, still holding the makeshift weapon. It has his blood and hair on it. I lean over his body, and he looks shocked when he sees me. His mouth curls into a sneer.
"You little blood lover. I'll destroy you."
I take a deep breath and smile. I'm deliberately nonchalant, like my dad taught me. The person who stays calm always maintains the upper hand. "You can't destroy me," I say to him, "but I can destroy you. I did some digging. It's amazing what you can find through the net. It's also amazing how much gambling debt you've racked up with someone called Blackjack. He seems very unforgiving given the list of people who have gone missing after failing to pay their debts. I hear he's looking for you. You've managed to hide from him. Good for you. But what do you think he'd do if a little bird handed him your address?" I dug up dirt on this man as soon as I realized the kind of home life Ella and Brooke had. You never know when information can be valuable. My mother taught me that. Mr. Kinrade doesn't move, and I know I have him by the fear in his eyes. You're going to go downstairs, I tell him. You're going to watch the E-screen with your wife, and Ella and Brooke are going to stay with me for a while. Do you understand? He nods. You will not hurt them again. If you do, I'll make sure Black Jack knows about it. He nods again, then stands, leaning on the dresser. His walk is unstable, but he makes it downstairs, and I hear the cracked E-screen turn on. I take a deep breath, finally letting my fear show in the shaking of my hands. I knock on the bathroom door. It's safe to come out now. They emerge with wide eyes and shivering lips. I hug them both. Pack up your bags. You're coming home with me. My parents don't hesitate to take Ella and Brooke in. We make up extra beds for them in my room, and for the first time ever, I have roommates. It's an interesting dynamic. Brooke's head heals well, with gentle ministrations from my father. It's her heart I'm more worried about. She's been moody, withdrawn, angry. I don't blame her. I just worry for her. The safe space seems to help Ella come out of her shell, though. She's become more talkative, more inclined to say what she wants and offer something new to a conversation. I find myself drawn to her especially. She's quiet, shy, uncertain, but under all of that, she's smart, savvy, and interesting. I find we are kindred spirits in ways I hadn't expected. I continue teaching her to read, and she picks it up with real talent. We picked up the birthday invites left in the dirt as we made our way back to my house, and Ella has hers propped up by her bed. You did a great job with the colors, she says with a shy smile. On the day of my party, I'm all giggles and silliness. My parents decorate the house with ribbons and candles, and my dad bakes a chocolate cake. He wanted to add marshmallows, but there weren't any in the rations. Brooke gapes at the cake. Your dad cooks? I nod. Of course. The cake has perfect stars drawn in frosting all over it. There are 10 candles on the top, and everyone present sings to me as I blow the candles out and make a wish. My wish, as it is every year, is that I will someday catch the attention of a high-ranking patrician family who will formally acknowledge me and give me their house name so I can join the 4 orders and become a knight. After cake, it's time for presents. Jax gives me his first. It's a medium-sized box, and I peel the paper and bows off to reveal a model airplane. He grins at me. Thought you'd enjoy putting it together. It actually flies once it's made, he says. I squeal and throw my arms around his neck. Thank you, thank you, thank you! I love it! I kiss his cheek and he blushes and smiles some more. You're welcome, Star. I can't wait to build the airplane, but I have other presents waiting. I don't expect anything from the twins, but Ella surprises me with a rectangular box wrapped in light paper. It's not much, but... Her voice trails off self-consciously. Brooke scowls at her and juts her lower lip out, but after a moment, she smiles. I'm sorry, Scarlet. I didn't know she was getting you something. It's fine, I say. I open the gift and find a handmade wooden box with a lid. I open the lid and inside there are 3 compartments, each containing a single item. I look up, confused but intrigued. Ella explains the gift. I know you can't see colors, so I wanted to give you something that might at least help you feel colors. Brooke scoffs. You can't feel colors, dummy. Ella shrugs, shutting down, but I smile. That's amazing, Ella. Thank you. She points to the first compartment. That's blue. she says. I pick up the rock, which is cold to the touch, like ice. Blue is a cool color, she says. It's calm and deep, like the ocean or the sky. I hold the rock in my hand and close my eyes, imagining the feel of blue. It pours over me, this sense of blue, and I open my eyes, smiling. Yes, I can feel it. She claps excitedly and points to the second compartment. That's red. It's hot, fiery, fierce. Like your mother, my dad says with a nudge of my mother's shoulders. She laughs. I pick up the second rock, which is hot. It almost burns my hand and I drop it. But with that one touch, I could feel red. It gets into your soul, that color. Yellow is the last primary color, she says. All other colors are found by combining these three. There's a sprig of moss in the compartment and I pick it up, holding the mushy moistness in my hand. Yellow is the color of the sun. It gives life to everything. It's warmth and new things and lushness, she says. I put the moss back into the box and close it, my heart too full to speak. I lean over and hug Ella, whispering into her ear so her sister can't hear. This is the most amazing gift anyone's ever given me, I say. She hugs me harder, a hitch in her breathing revealing how much my words meant. When I pull back, Brooke is glaring at us both, so I smile at her, hoping she doesn't stay grumpy all day. My parents give me their gift last, and when I open it, I sit there with my jaw hanging open, gaping. What is it? Brooke asks. I still can't speak. I just pull it out of the box and everyone gasps. Even Jax. But how? Brooke asks. She looks over at my parents like they just sprouted Nephilim wings. I look up at them, the same question written on my face. How could my parents have afforded this? An e-glass? I say, still staring at the small device in my hands. It's sleek and perfect and fits over my ear as if it was made for me. I open the manual and figure out quickly how to turn it on. The AI built into it greets me with a British accent. Hello, Scarlet. Happy birthday. I'm Evie. Hi, Evie, I say, my face hurting from the aggressive smiling I can't seem to stop. My mom grins. We have our ways. I took the liberty of tweaking her programming so she's more customized. I can teach you how to do it too, so you can make her a one-of-a-kind. What can she do? I ask. I soon find out. When I see something new, Evie's beautiful accented voice chimes in, telling me the colors of things. Colors? She can see colors? Evie answers. Yes, of course. I can see everything. What would you like me to do for you? So much, I think. So very much. The party ends, and I go outside to fiddle with Evie and learn her ins and outs. The sun is setting, and everything around me turns iridescent with the fading light. Gold and orange, says Evie, and I giggle. It's been a long day. A great day, but a long one. And having Ella and Brooke staying in my room has made alone time more challenging. I need space. But then Jax walks out onto the porch with me, and I realize I never need space from him. I put my e-glass on, marveling at the feel of it on my ear, and ask him if he wants to play orders. I can get Ella and Brooke? No, he says, looking too serious for my liking. My stomach sinks. What's going on? He looks over at me with his beautiful eyes. Blue, says Evie, with brown hair. I'm going to be leaving for a while, he says. I feel sick. Where are you going?
I've been accepted to Castradomus, he says softly. Then he is silent, and I think he wants me to respond, but I am frozen. The closest Castradomus, a private school that prepares children for a full domus, is in Vancouver. I've always wanted to go, but my parents don't want me to live so far away. I finally understand. When I think of Jax that far away, my eyes turn watery. It's a chance to learn what I need, he says, and when I turn 17, I will apply to a domus. I will make a difference. The dream you spoke of, I will make real. My words are slow and tender. But in my dream we are together. And we will be again, he says, taking my hand. But this is my way out of this life, Star. My dad's too drunk to help me accomplish anything, and I can't stay stuck in this town forever. I'll make a name for myself, and you'll join me when you're ready. And together we'll change things for the better. His smile is warm and full of hope. I will not ruin it with selfish words, so I hold back the tears and grin. One day, you will be a knight, Jackson Lux. And I hope on that day, a Pat and a plebe can be friends. When I arrive for training the next day, Mirrodin is packing up to leave. I felt something in the air for a few days, but ignored it, hoping it would go away. Now I know what I felt. It was the feeling of things ending. First with Jax, now with Mirrodin. Don't go, I say. He turns to me as if he didn't know I was there. He of course did. He always does. I have to, girl. I've told all the stories I know to tell here. Without gold coming in, Mirrodin's heading out. Maybe I could pay you, I offer, for training and stuff. To stay. You couldn't afford me, he says, fidgeting with the leather straps on his buck. But who will train me to be a knight if not you? To fight with a sword, to pick the right herbs, to think the right thoughts. He turns to me now, a frown on his face. Don't let anyone tell you which thoughts to have, Scarlet Knight. I taught you to think so you could choose your own thoughts and not be a puppet of others. See? This proves I still need you. I'm not ready. He kneels in front of me on one knee and looks me in the eyes. Scarlet, you do not need me. You already are who you are meant to be. You just don't know it yet. And worry not, girl. We will meet again some day. Of that I am sure. By the orders, I am sure. Chapter 5. Festival. Mirrodin is gone, but Jax won't be leaving for a few weeks. He'll still come to the Fortuna Festival with us. It'll be our last time together for a while, and it's a bittersweet experience. Like biting into a fairy fruit to find it's rotten inside. But I try not to dwell on the sad. This is the summer solstice, and it's a time for luck and laughter. My mom has brought out her jewelry-making kit for us all to use as we make our good luck charms to wear to the festival. I make a charm for Ella out of small beaded flowers. When I give it to her, she beams and Brooke scowls. I want one too, she demands. So I make her one, but with a lot less joy. Brooke is great when she forgets she has to be the center of attention. I wonder if it is because of her parents, if they pay her less attention than they do Ella. The last one I make is for Jax. It's made of stars. For luck, I say, but you won't need luck. He hugs me and accepts the charm. I'll keep this always. My dad pulls out a huge chest he keeps in the closet, and it's filled with costumes and outfits. We dig through it, trying on ridiculous costumes and masks until we have all settled on what we're wearing. It takes a few hours to drive to the festival, and another eternity to find parking. But it's worth it. We spend all afternoon exploring the booths, playing games. Jax beats me in a race, but I beat him at a puzzle. Eating more sugar than is good for us and watching the parade of royalty go by as the queen waves. I'm most enamored by her dress and extravagant hair, which Evie informs me is purple. People with money to burn have hair that changes color on command, and they wear clothes that change shape and style on some kind of schedule. Our costumes pale in comparison, but I don't mind. I'm happy. I'm with my family and friends, and I'm having the best day of my life. Until we get home. We are still chattering about the day, our fingers still sticky from honey bread and candied apples, when our doorbell rings. My father answers it and speaks in low, firm tones, finally turning to us with a frown.
Ella, Brooke, your father is here.
I jump and run to the door. I never told my parents what I did to Mr. Conray, and I don't intend to. I'm about to yell at him when my dad puts a hand on my shoulder.
Star, they are his children. He has a right to see them.
Their father stands at the door, a meek and contrite expression on his down-turned face. He's dressed in an old suit and holds a top hat in his hand. His thin hair is combed and his eyes are clear. He doesn't smell like alcohol, just cigarettes.
I'm here to get my daughters. I realize I've made a terrible mistake, he says, tears in his eyes.
You beat them, I accuse. My dad squeezes my shoulder gently, but doesn't say anything.
I did. I know. And I will live with that pain for the rest of my life. But I'm on a new path and I want to make it right to them.
Ella is standing next to me, shaking. But when he holds a flower out to her, she runs to him, crying and hugging him. Brooke is slower to be won over, but even she eventually cracks, joining the hugs and tears. They leave our house with their bags and smiles, and I slump against the door in a heap of confusion. I don't trust him. I'm mopey and restless, and when I find a slice of honey bread the twins left behind, I use it as a chance to see them.
They need some space,
my dad says. I'm just dropping off their treat. I won't stay. He sighs.
Okay, but be back before it's dark.
I'm out of the house before he finishes his sentence. I just need to make sure my friends are okay. When I arrive at their house, my heart skips a beat and I drop the honey bread in the dirt, my hand shaking. There's an unmarked bruiser outside their house. I've seen Inquisition officers use white ones before, but this one's different. It's black and big as a tank. Through the window I see two men talking with Mr. Conray. One wears a long black coat, his face covered under a hood. The other is huge, with large muscles that bulge from his body like they were grown in a lab. They probably were. I tap my e-glass. Evie, what can you tell me about this bruiser? She scans the license plate.
I'm sorry, but there's no information.
Can you hack the motor vehicle database and look?
Hacking is illegal and wrong, she says.
I'll have to change her mind, but not now. I sneak around the back of the house and see Brooke and Ella sitting, tied to chairs in the kitchen. Brooke looks up and sees me. Her eyes are red and swollen. I point to my e-glass and point to her dad sitting on the kitchen table. She nods in understanding and focuses all her power on moving the e-glass. It bumps against the wooden table, shuffling, but not moving enough. She squints her eyes and tries again. This time it hovers and starts to move closer to her until it lands on her ear. Evie, call Brooke's e-glass. Evie puts the call through and Brooke answers. Scarlet! Scarlet! Her words are shaky, and I can see in her eyes. She is lost in fear. I too am trembling, but it is not the same. Some people are frozen by terror.
I am spurred to action. "What's going on?" I ask.
"I don't know. Men are here talking to my dad. They tied us up,"
she whispers.
"I'm scared."
"You'll be fine," I say in a soothing voice as I scan the area. There's no back door, but the windows are large. "Listen, you need to—" The tall, thin man with the hood walks into the kitchen. His black cloak is an Eden fashionable. Snake designs coil around him and move over the fabric. A black A tattoo peeks out from under his sleeve.
"Get out of there!"
I yell.
"They're Zenith traffickers! The Apex! Your dad is selling you to them!"
Probably to pay off his gambling debts. Brooke shakes her head, scared. She can't get out. She's tied up. I use Evie to zoom in on the kitchen, looking for a knife but not finding one. Maybe something heavy.
"Use your powers! Throw the microwave at him!"
While she focuses her abilities, I tell Evie to call emergency dispatch and get a hold of my parents.
My hands are covered in sweat, and I wipe them on my pants.
"I have alerted emergency dispatch, Scarlet, but I cannot reach your parents.